Hey folks, this is Dr. Emily Scherning with American Resiliency. In this video, we're going to think about fire and the national landscape and kind of talk about this big emerging problem and then focus in on just one fire area, Northwest Montana. This video was made possible by the generosity of Tammy J. Tammy, thank you so much for your support both on this project and for all you do to support AR. Your gifts are driving action on the ground. In April, the USDA issued a memo in response to Executive Order 14225, Immediate Expansion of American Timber Production. You can read that memo at the link in the video description, or you can look at the map, which you can imagine is what I immediately wanted to do. This map here shows the national forests where logging is going to be expanded. And when I look at this map in light of the 5th National Climate Assessment, as well as the Forest Service Tree Atlas showing probable species migration, to say I see some real complexity in this map would be an understatement. Of course, I would always defer to the judgment of foresters on the ground, but when we look at climate trends in the US, we see wildfire emerging in many areas. My family in the Sierras has already experienced terrible wildfire, including the 2020 Creek Fire in the Sierra National Forest. When I started visiting my aunt at her home in the Sierras 20 years ago, they lived in a cool pine forest. Now at the same elevation, they're in hot oak chaparral. And that chaparral is still transitioning towards grass. The change isn't over. I have wondered before, and some people seem to think this is a controversial thought. I wonder, though, if it wouldn't have been better if all that timber around their place could have been logged before it burned. It seems like that would be better just from a carbon perspective. Like most options would be better than just burning up all those trees. I don't have the hard numbers to support that intuition, but there's so much just gone into air from what was on the earth there. Looking back at the map here, I do see areas highlighted where we're probably talking about a logger burn situation, including large parts of the Cascades, which is absolutely tragic to envision. In our beautiful national forests, either logging or burning both offend the feeling heart, but there are places where we don't have a good option. We have to face the changes that are coming. And in the case of the Cascades, we're talking about areas where there are places where the ecosystem, climate science indicates it's going to experience a profound change to the water cycle. In the projections, we're seeing a big shift away in that area from snowpack fed watersheds and towards rain as the dominant form of precipitation. Those are trends we're observing now. Those are changes that water managers in Washington state are currently planning for at city, county, and state levels. So, like I say, I do see areas on this map where there is a fuel load emergency where log or burn, it seems like that's the choice on the table. But I also see areas on this map where logging is indicated in old growth forests with projected high stability and continuing overall forest health. That's particularly true along the spine of Appalachia. In those places, I think that what we might be seeing here is the profit motive of accessing high quality old growth timber. That could be an evident aspect of the calculation here than the true emerging fire risk for the region. Though, of course, I would defer to ground reports from foresters. There's nowhere, though, from the climate projections where I feel this conflict is more evident than when we look at that Monongahela National Forest around West Virginia there. That national forest has a very strong climate outlook, according to all the resources and projections I have studied. That's the sort of forest we should be protecting to our very fullest capacity. When we look at the kinds of actions the USDA is undertaking in response to this executive order, we've been culturally conditioned to assume that everything's a dichotomy. Every point has to be either right or wrong, fully upheld, or entirely without merit. And that's a very limiting way to look at the world. As we consider our American future, there are high change areas where forests are likely to die. In these forests, reducing the fuel load is a serious need, and proactive logging makes sense. But not every place is projected to experience the same rate of change. Not all of our forests are going to die, and we should save the ones we can save. But even in the case of lost, we need to look at how the land is changing. We've got to start thinking about what the land wants to be. In areas where we're losing our forests, we're by and large not gaining a wasteland, we're gaining a grassland. And supporting that growth is as important to our productive future as one-time logging. Landscape change, land use change, is one of the most powerful tools we have in our hand to shape our climate future. If we take up proper use of this tool, we can drive carbon into the soil, enriching the soil and the earth for future generations. We can create landscapes that will endure in the years of change to come. And in those generations to come, I hope my descendants will walk beneath the great and living trees of the Monongahela. Those trees need our protection today. But today I want to talk with you about an area that is very likely to burn, an area that is highlighted on that map we were looking at, and that is Northwest Montana. I want to show you here with Jackie's wonderful visualization of the NCA5 data sets. This is publicly available. The link is in the video description. You can explore for yourself. But you should see, just for the moment, that Northwest Montana is an area with pretty good, cool summer preservation here. Here we're visualizing increase in days over 100, and we're looking at a color key where it's like we're working metal, where black is cool and white is hot. Northwest Montana is looking pretty good on that factor. A lot of people might be interested in the outlook for Montana. Bozeman's an interesting area as far as outlooks go. In many ways, when we look at Montana's future, we're talking about a comfortable outlook for people, but the level of change is not so comfortable for the trees of the area. In Northwest Montana, we're talking about an alarmingly high fire outlook. And today I want to talk with you about this area, and I want to talk about walking the fire path through the fires at this particular location. The rest of the video, I hope it's going to speak to people on the ground in this region because you're the ones who will be doing this work. If you want to help spread the message on the ground, you'll see the video segment that follows can be shared separate from the whole preamble here. You can access that link in the video description as well. For the rest of us, especially those of us in fire-threatened areas, I want to hear from you about how AR could help communicate with your community about walking your fire path. Hey folks, I want to speak with you all in Northwest Montana about the importance of your lands and the changes that are coming your way. There's a lot of work to be done to steer the course for Montana through this time of change, and just like you know, nobody's going to show up to solve your problems for you. You're the ones who are going to be doing this work, and I want to do what I can to help get you some information about what's coming. As we've seen throughout the West over the last 20 years, change has swept across the landscape. Forests have died of the heat, of the drought, and of the pine beetles. And when you got a bunch of dead wood, it doesn't take a genius to know you're going to have fire. I wish it were different, but all the signs are on the table that fire is coming to Northwest Montana in a big way. In the USDA's response to the executive order about forests and fuel loads, you can see your area is marked for increased logging. And there are some places on this nationwide map that I disagree with the decision to expand logging, but I couldn't agree more strongly with the need to assist the landscape transition in your area. Fire is a risk that is coming at you, but it's also a risk that we could manage, that you could manage, and let me tell you why and give you some background. So my name's Dr. Emily Scherning. I'm a scientist. I work on helping communities and landowners access the science of how our lands are likely to change. I've spent many years deep in the weeds on climate projection information based in my home here in an agricultural community in eastern Iowa. This is where I live. Corn is my neighbor some years. This year it's hay, best neighbor ever. I live close to the land in community with people who farm, people who need to respond to changes in the land. Last year, my community had a lot of conversation about moving up the planting date, and almost every farmer decided to take that bet, and it paid off. Even in the context of ongoing drought, we had good yields, and this year, the community feels more confident in their ability to mount an effective change response. We're responding to change in my community so we can stay strong, provide for our families, and maintain our way of life. And I want the same for you and yours. I want to show you the projections for Montana now and take them with a grain of salt if you like. I don't mind. These are federal projections and you already paid for them, so you should get some use out of them. This core information comes from the NCA5, which you can find right here at nca2023.globalchange.gov. But because Musk and his team are wrecking all the databases we taxpayers have paid for, my people and I have backed up this information. I'm going to visualize it with this tool made by Jackie Ryan, an engineer with NASA, which is beautiful work using publicly available data sets to make a smooth interactive experience. I want to show you the heat coming to Northwest Montana. And a day over 100 is hot for Northwest Montana, so let's look at days over 95. where you can see the Lake, Sanders, Mineral, and Missoula counties are looking at pretty intense hot season extensions with close to a week of additional days over 95 expected in some places. That's the heat that's projected for when we're 2C over pre-industrial baseline. Right now, we're over 1.5, which is a big jump from where we expect to be. Things got real weird in terms of Earth systems in 2023. The federal government had been planning on us hitting 2C about 2050. Now it's looking more like we might see 2C by 2030, 2035. So that's big change we're talking about in 5-10 years, getting another week of intense heat on the ground. And there's other changes projected too. You can see increased precipitation. You're looking at close to 5% more precipitation in these projections in this area. But you and I both know that in the mountains, it's not just rain that matters, it's snow and it's snowpack. You can see here on figure 4.5 from the NCA5, we're looking at 2, 3, even more inches of snow water equivalent lost in this part of Montana, and that over the border in Idaho, it's even worse. And I mean, look over here in the Cascades, it's just terrible. It gets worse and worse the further west you go, right? That loss of snowmelt water is going to feel big on the land. Without that cool snow water coming down from the mountains all summer, it's going to change everything. Traditionally, peak stream flow in your area, I read at least it's been around August, but by 2C, that's projected to come in February. That's a heck of a change on the ground, and it's going to be rough on a lot of life, including the trout, for sure, and the trees. A lot of the forests in your area are going to experience stress, and a lot of trees are very likely to die when we look at these projections. More from the change in the water cycle than from anything else. And that dead wood means fire. When we look at these projections, the actions the USDA has taken in response to that executive order to increase logging in your area, I can't see how it's not a good thing. Logging is a way to help manage that fire risk, but logging alone doesn't go far enough. What we need to be thinking about is what comes after. What comes further down the fire path? What comes after the forests? I'm sure many of you are thinking the answer, which is prairie, which is grasslands. If we log and we don't do anything, that soil is going to be loose on the ground, and there's already too much soil moving up into the air for my tastes. We've been getting dirty rain here in Iowa from dust being blown up into the air out of Oklahoma. Last thing we need right now is another dust bowl. There's plenty of people in my place and throughout the plains who remember how bad the last one was. So if you got trees on your land, we got to take a look at what happened further west and learn from that. Pines, maybe they ought to come down and log them before they burn. You all have a lot of people who live in beautiful places nestled in cool pine forests, just like my aunt's home in the California Sierras used to be before the change. And the risk of fire is coming to you just like it came for her. Accepting that risk, moving into risk management, that could help avoid the kind of terrible loss of life that we've seen in wildfires across the West. The pines, they've got a rough outlook. The oaks, if you've got some oaks mixed in there, if they survive the fires, the oaks are still standing throughout burned areas in California and Utah. The grasslands, you want to come in. It might not surprise you to learn that there are many people in Montana working on that need. The first organization I'd like to highlight is American Prairie, which you can get to at americanprairie.org. This is a big organization. I was looking at their tax receipts. They got gross receipts over $20 million in 2023. They're buying private land, and they raise that money so they can pay good money for private land. If you're a landowner who'd like some experts to help you get ready, help bring about change on your land, these are people who might be good for a consult. But if you feel like you don't need a consult, you're ready to put in seed, plenty of people in Montana and nationwide are familiar with Pheasants Forever. I love Pheasants Forever. They do great work in Iowa. And one of the things that I think is most impressive about their organization is work with seed mix. So check this out. This is their seed mix store with clear pricing for the mixes that they already have put together. And they will put together custom mixes that will fit particular landscape situations. You can see that they're pretty well customized already, right? I love it when I see the Pheasants Forever guys at Midwestern land conferences. Those are people I trust. They care about the land the same way I do, and the work they've done to put together these pretty low cost, high volume, high quality seed mixes for people who want to steward their land through change. I don't know that there is a better source for the seed we need so we can have Pheasants Forever. These seed mixes, again, they're highly local. They can be made tailored to your land. There's a lot of good stuff we can hold on to in the change. Change is coming, and when we see that change is coming, There are some of us who can tap into that energy, who get ready to respond. Just as an example, it's worth thinking about other loss and gain to hunting and fishing in Northwest Montana. The change is coming. They're likely to present risks to some of your established industries. But I think you'll agree, working to get on top of that ball and doing what we can to manage risk, that could help keep Montana strong. A lot of people go to Montana for the trout fishing, right? Everyone knows there's world-class trout fishing in Montana. And anyone who knows much about trout knows a loss of that cool snowmelt water is going to hit them hard. It's already happened in Europe. Some folks who have followed trout might know about the hits that German and Scottish trout fishing have taken. Europe's outlook is worse than ours. They're getting hit first. And while we will have some lasting protection for our higher elevation trout fishing, we are going to suffer losses as well. There's a loss here, but when we think about hunting, there might be a gain. More prairie means more game. People who lived mostly on prairie lived mostly on game. Prairie is productive for buffalo, and prairie is productive for elk. Both of those grazing animals, we can see paths to strength for Montana in these times of change. Buffalo takes care of prairie, and prairie takes care of buffalo. You can get a positive cycle going that benefits land and benefits people, because there could be strong benefits to buffalo as a landowner. I mean, when you eat buffalo meat, you can understand why people who lived mostly on prairie lived mostly on buffalo meat. That's a meat with a great flavor, not a flavor that some people find too gamey, like with elk or venison. And buffalo is good for the earth in terms of meat production, ecological costs. There's also an increasing demand for buffalo in the market. I've seen it in a lot of normal stores where I live, like Target, Hy-Vee. I think I've seen it at Walmart too. People in communities like mine are familiar with buffalo meat and they want it. People think it's cool. And we've got our own cows here. We don't need to get Montana beef. We can go to the local meat locker. But if we want buffalo, y'all are in the position to do it. Buffalo, that's something to think maybe about sending out. Elk. If you can get more elk on the prairie, that's a good way to get more people coming in, get more money coming in, pick up some of the dollars that flow into the hospitality industry you've built up around fly fishing, pivot and expand elk hunting. There's already a great elk hunting industry in Montana, and for you all, walking that fire path, embracing change, that could mean gain, not loss. Responding to change shouldn't be all about death and loss. There's another side of the fire. You all have the fireweed out there. I think this is just a beautiful picture of fireweed that I used for the thumbnail by Marta Burnell. Thank you, Marta. And those of you who know fireweed, you know how after a fire, the landscape is covered with color. The rocks and the lines of the land are exposed, and you can see that you've got a bedrock that will survive change. Northwest Montana, I think more than many places in the nation, you are ready to walk the fire path. You all have guts and grit, and you have the courage to see through the fire, to accept and manage risk rather than fear it. Your land carries this lesson, the lesson in the fireweed about the growth that can come with change. And as you do the work to move from forest to prairie, to log responsibly and protect your communities from the danger of fire, I know you can also hold fast to that transformative power in the fire, that you can look to what comes after. And what comes after, that could be strong for Montana. If we look back to that national map, I think you'll see that your still relatively cool summers are looking pretty rare in these 2C projections. Montana isn't just looking at challenges in the outlook. Montana's looking at opportunities. I hope you can take a step to respond to change today. In these times of change, there are always losers and there are winners. I think Montana could be a winner. I hope you all are getting ready. Folks, thanks for watching, and thanks to everyone in the AR community who keeps this channel going. The donors, the volunteers, people spreading the word online, and especially everyone doing the work on the ground. Financially, AR is a donor-supported organization. We don't take grant funding, and I want you to know your support really matters. If you'd like to donate, please check out the link on our website, www.americanresiliency.org, or on the About page of our YouTube channel. I'll look forward to talking with you again soon.